Welcome to this year's National Reconciliation Week message. We are coming to you from Quandamooka country here in Brisbane's Bayside. The traditional custodians of these lands are the Nunukal people, the Gurrumpul and the Nugi people. We pay our respects today to their elders, past, present, emerging, acknowledging that their care for these lands over many generations and their ongoing connection to the country here. This year's National Reconciliation Week theme is Bridging Now to Next. This is a hope-filled vision for renewal and restoration in the future, in the midst of the clearly significant ongoing challenges on this reconciliation journey. The artwork for this year's National Reconciliation Week is particularly close to our hearts. As a First Nations artist, Bree Buttonshaw, a proud Kalkadoon woman residing here on Quandamooka country, was chosen to create this year's design. We thank God so much for Bree's creativity and for the message that is inherent in her beautiful artwork. A key feature of her artwork are several precious examples of native flora, plants like the lemon myrtle, the banksia, leaves from a gum tree, the desert lime, the kangaroo paw. Like so many of these remarkable native flora across our nation, these plants were chosen especially by Bree to exemplify powerful characteristics of resilience. These plants have an amazing ability to endure harsh conditions, to regenerate after times of fire and of other threats, and to ultimately flourish despite all the adversity they face. So these plants can be seen to embody the strength and adaptability of people and communities across our nation, underlying the importance of growth in the present while looking forward to greater fruitfulness in the future. Bree's hope is that her artwork encapsulates themes such as perseverance, unity, and hope in these days, as we seek to come together and work towards a rich life of compassionate community, shared by both our First Nations people and non-Indigenous Australians. For just as these native plants are designed to survive and to thrive through all seasons, so too is the journey of reconciliation across our nation intended to be a story that sees triumph emerge from the inevitable trials. In thinking about this imagery for National Reconciliation Week, the three hallmarks of these distinctive native plants that were mentioned earlier remind me of key aspects of God's encouragement to us in the Scriptures. He encourages us that we should be invited to live in a special way, a different way in this most difficult of seasons. I don't think any person living in Australia today could suggest that the journey of reconciliation for Indigenous and non-Indigenous people is proving to be easy. There are hurts, there is pain, and there are misunderstandings that are apparently standing in the way of real and lasting progress for us. But we know God's heart is for reconciliation. His plan is for reconciliation, and His love and power working within us and through us is the hope for reconciliation. So let's take a few moments to consider how these striking characteristics of some of those native flora featured on this year's National Reconciliation Week artwork can inspire us to never abandon our pursuit for real and lasting reconciliation across these lands now known as Australia. First, we can learn from plants like the banksia of the blessing that is ours when we endure harsh conditions. Paul wrote of this in his letter to the Romans. In chapter 5, verses 3 and 4, he noted this: "We also rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope." Just as the banksia will endure harsh conditions, so too can we as God's people endure the challenges of these days on the reconciliation journey, believing that even the trials and the tribulations of this path are moulding us, they're shaping us, our whole nation, to become all that the Lord envisions that we can be. Vincent Lingiari was the leading figure in the Wave Hill Walk-Off of 1966 that is forever remembered in Paul Kelly's From Little Things, Big Things Grow. He reportedly told those who were impatient for his resolution to a request for justice for the Gurindji people of the Northern Territory that his brothers and sisters knew how to wait. In my experience, this is a striking hallmark of those who continue working for reconciliation and First Nations justice here in Australia. Despite the apparent lack of progress, and despite the ongoing opposition to the cause, Indigenous advocates and non-Indigenous partners continue to be resolute in their desire to see real change enacted on the reconciliation journey. These heroes have not given up. Their voices are still being heard, and their resilience in the face of the challenges they encounter is shaping them into people whose perseverance is unquestionable, whose character is undeniable, and whose hope is unshakable. I pray that all of us, Indigenous or non-Indigenous, will see that enduring these harsh conditions that come with pursuing the reconciliation journey in the face of opposition is a pathway that is blessed by God, and that He can and does use it to shape our character and to nourish our sense of hope. Second, we can observe this, even from the leaves of the gum tree. We see that God in nature, as in humankind, makes it possible for us to regenerate after fire and other threats. Isaiah proclaimed a message to God's people at the time of their exile in Babylon, reassuring them that despite their tribulations, they would not be completely destroyed. In Isaiah chapter 43, verse 2, he told them this: "When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze." Just as the gum trees miraculously regenerate after seasons of testing and trial that seem sure to destroy them utterly, so too can those who are pursuing reconciliation be sure that they will come through the fire of opposition and obstruction to a place of renewal and of new life. It has been a long and arduous journey for those who long to see reconciliation in this country. And it can sometimes seem that there is a fire of rancor burning in some places that will frustrate this hope for reconciliation forever. For many Indigenous people, and for those who supported their cause, the 2023 Voice referendum was an example of a fire that raged in different places across this nation, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. As those who campaigned passionately for the country to vote yes to support an Indigenous voice to Parliament witnessed the divisive debates that swirled around them and the ultimate defeat of their cause, it was as if a raging inferno had taken hold. Some wondered for some time whether their hope in a continued journey towards reconciliation could even re-emerge. Yet little by little, those who had been profoundly wounded rose from the ashes of their experience and began to dream again of what might be possible in the future. As the intensity of the fire finally passed by, advocates for reconciliation began to see that all had not been lost and that green shoots of hope still lingered in the midst of it all. We have been witness to this here in our own Redlands community, as we have walked alongside a number of our remarkable and inspiring local elders through this time. To say that they were wounded and reeling after the referendum would be a significant understatement. Nevertheless, as these elders recognised that there were still partners around them, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous, who were energised for the journey ahead, their hope for life after the fire that had devastated them began to be reawakened. A number of community partners, including the Salvation Army, partnered with local elders here in a journey of healing event in our local community to recognise National Reconciliation Week in 2024. In a truly transformative moment, the elders and other key First Nations leaders saw that, even through the landscape of their experience that had been scorched and charred by what had happened, the prospects for growth and lasting change in the future had not been extinguished. So if you are considering whether the fire of opposition to the cause of reconciliation is reason to abandon hope for the future, consider this promise from Isaiah as a reminder of God's power to prevail through every fire and above every threat. Where true justice is pursued, we can be certain that the cause of those who are suffering will be vindicated, no matter the spectre of desolation that might be in view at points along that journey. And third, we see this in native flora like the kangaroo paw, that God's intent is that we flourish through adversity. In chapter 5 of Peter's first epistle, verse 10 reminds us of this: the God of all grace, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. In the days of the first century, Peter wrote this letter to encourage believers who were experiencing trials and tribulations as they clung to their faith in the midst of stern opposition. In the same way, advocates for reconciliation today can find encouragement in the knowledge that suffering in support of this cause will finally result in restoration, in renewed strength, in firm foundations, in unshakable outcomes. It is not as if we must constrain ourselves to believe that all we can hope for through suffering is to survive. No, on the contrary, God's promise here is that the pathway beyond the experience of suffering in pursuit of his purposes will ultimately lead us to thrive. This vision of thriving together as a reconciled nation under God must continue to inspire and enliven us as we face this journey ahead. The Lord has a plan to see this nation of ours flourish, to experience what the Hebrews of biblical times called shalom. This is the state of being where people are living at peace with God and with one another, reconciled in all their relationships, and able to realize their full potential as a result. I glimpsed this hope again recently while crossing a newly constructed bridge here in my hometown of Brisbane. The Neville Bonner Bridge was opened in August 2024 and now sees thousands of people cross the bridge each day between our South Bank parklands and the Brisbane CBD. The bridge is an imposing structure. It's part of a fitting legacy for Senator Neville Bonner, the first Indigenous member of the Australian Parliament. Senator Bonner was a senator here for Queensland in the Australian Parliament from 1971 until 1983. His ascension to this role from very humble circumstances in his early life paved the way for many more First Nations people to occupy roles of importance in government and in other spheres of public life across our nation. His service to Australia was a metaphorical bridge to a time when Indigenous people could begin to find some opportunities to shine as people of influence here in Australia. While this journey is by no means complete, Senator Neville Bonner's story is a powerful reminder that Indigenous people can find ways to flourish in this country. It is also a great signpost for all of us as we consider what it is we can do to pave the way for reconciliation, so that more and more First Nations people can find their own place of purpose and significance in Australia today. As non-Indigenous Australians work with Indigenous people to open pathways to reconciliation and to mutual flourishing for everyone here, God will lead us beyond the shared suffering of our past to a strong, firm, and steadfast future together. Finally then, may this National Reconciliation Week be for each Christ follower an opportunity to reflect on the resilience of our First Nations people, their ability to endure harsh conditions, their capacity to regenerate after the fire of past experiences, and their miraculous capability to flourish despite great challenges. Their perseverance in seeking to move from now to next on the journey of healing must inspire and motivate all of us to partner together in seeking God's intention for reconciliation and see it come to a powerful conclusion in this nation. God longs for reconciliation in this country, and even the distinctive native flora of our nation can provide reminders of what he has purposed to do to keep us resilient as we pursue this restoration of each person, true sisters and brothers, under his lordship. So may the Lord bless you, keep you, and make his face to shine upon you as you partner with him, with First Nations people, non-Indigenous people alike, to grasp the captivating future of a reconciled nation that can finally flourish in all its fullness. And to our reconciling God be all the glory.